Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to my photography masterclass. My name is Terry White, worldwide photography evangelist here at Adobe. It's my pleasure to be streaming to you live once again on my favorite day of the week. That is a Friday in cloudy Atlanta. It's been kind of thunderstormy here, and hopefully that will not have any impact on today's stream. There are people that are coming in from all over the world, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, thanks for being here. If you're watching this on the replay, thanks for watching the replay. I like replay numbers just as much. And today we're going to be doing one of my usual topics. I do this about every month or month and a half or so, and that is how I would edit your photos. So I put the link out on my social media, usually 4 or 5 days before. I give people a deadline to upload the images. It's too late. You can't upload them today. It's already done. But just follow me on social. That way you'll always be alerted to when the next one happens. You get days in advance to upload your images. And then we'll take your photos and I'll give you my take on them, how I would edit them, what I would do to them. And again, this is not meant to be my way is the right way. It's just you're asking for a second opinion when you upload your images. So I'm giving you that second opinion. If you still want to do it a different way, they're your images. Do what you want. All right, so with that said, if you are watching this on YouTube, so I see Lisa White over on YouTube. I see someone in Los Angeles on Facebook. I see people, who's that? Camille or Cami, sorry, on Facebook. I see some other folks on YouTube, and of course, people in our Adobe Live chat. If you want to hang out on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or X, Twitch, and LinkedIn, by all means, hang out on those platforms. But I may not see all the questions because I can't look at all the windows at once. But I will definitely look at the Adobe Live one, which is at b.net/Adobe Live. So if you have an urgent question and I'm not answering it, head over to the other chat, and that way either I will answer it or someone in the moderation or the other participants will answer it if I don't get to it. All right. So images were submitted all up front. Last night was the deadline. We got some great images from the contributors today, so I'm real happy and excited to work on these. And I got a bug I'll talk about that I have to do something a little differently when I do the edits because of a bug on my system. Shouldn't affect you. And that's it. None of these are mine. These are all user submitted. So here's what I do. Let's pop over to my desktop. I've got a Lightroom catalog set up. So this is not my main catalog. This is a catalog I set up a long time ago, one of those rare instances where I use another catalog just for the purpose of importing other people's photos that I use for this class to edit. So none of my photos are in here. These are all user submitted. Now, just because you submit a photo doesn't mean I'm going to get to it. So I keep the running list of photos, and every now and then I'll move a photo up to the top that I didn't get to last week, or I'm sorry, last time, or the time before that. So I sprinkle in the ones that were just submitted among some that had been submitted a while ago so that we can get everyone's edited eventually, even though if it doesn't happen on the day or the week you submitted it. So that way you keep coming back and hopefully I get to the image that you submitted. Sometimes people also submit 2 or 3 or 4 images. So I won't necessarily get to every image you submitted. I'll usually pick 1 from that person or 2 maybe from that person because we have other people that submitted as well. So that's it. Thanks for watching from Jamaica. Very cool. I love Jamaica. And hello, hello, hello. All right. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive in no particular order. These usually came in randomly the way they were imported. So I'm going to start with this first photo. And it looks like a guy sitting at a bar. And he says, his hat says, "We the People" since 1776. Very patriotic. And let's go ahead and pop over to the develop module. Now, where do I start? And if you watch me before, you know the 2 things I always start with. I always set a profile if it's a raw shot. And I always hit auto tone no matter what. Then I go from there. So that doesn't necessarily mean that those 2 things are by no means done. Those are my starting points. And also a third one would be a lens correction. Now, I don't always think to do the lens correction because I shoot with a mirrorless camera now and the lens correction happens automatically in the body and I never have to do it manually. But because these are user submitted, I'll try to remember to do those on the user submitted ones too. All right, so first and foremost, there's a few things that need to be addressed in this photo. But let's start with where I start. So I usually set it's a raw file, so I get these raw profiles, and I'll usually set camera portrait. That means grab the portrait profile for that particular camera, whatever camera they used. All right, great. Next, I'll hit auto tone. And again, it's just so I don't have to move every single slider manually and try and guess where I want to be. Auto does and by the way, Auto's AI-based, has been for years. Auto will do an AI-based auto tone, and in most cases, I don't agree with every single slider, but it moves, let's say 80% of the sliders the way I would move them. So that way it takes the work out of me having to do it. So I'll hit auto tone. And again, same thing. I don't agree with everything it did here. And there's also, it looks like a white balance issue. This image looks very green. So let's take care of a couple things. Number one, it did bump up the exposure and the shadows. I'm just not sure if I'm happy with that amount, but let's leave it for now because it's starting to grow on me. Let's fix the white balance first. So I'm going to grab the white balance eyedropper, and where I would normally point the white balance eyedropper is on something that should be gray. That looks like this part of the wall here should be gray. I could be wrong. And I'll click it, and if I'm wrong, I'll just undo it. And it looks like it was a change for the better. So this is before, where everything has kind of like a green cast to it. And this is, let's go back, let's do it again. And this is after. It kind of tones down that green cast. Now he's wearing, looks like a green jacket, that's fine. But I don't want that green over the whole scene. All right, so, and if you could always tweak it. So if you thought it should be a little warmer, you could warm it up, you could cool it down, you could make it anything in between. So you could tweak it to your heart's content. And again, that's more of a personal thing. White balance is usually mathematically set, but if you don't, or technically set, if you don't agree with the technical look of it, change it to where you like. That's why it's a slider. You could slide it to where you want. Make it a little cooler, make it a little warmer based on what you want. You also have the ability to change the tint. So if I were to drag that tint over, I can start taking some of that green out of the image. Now it's going to introduce pink and purple, but again, it's an ever so slight adjustment to kind of take more of that green out of the whole image. That's about where I want to be. So again, just with what we've done so far, that's before and that's after, just with a couple clicks in Lightroom. All right, next up, I'm going to come down to lens correction, and I'm going to, and it's already enabled, so great, I didn't have to do it. This person shot with a mirrorless too. So it's already enabled, don't have to do anything there, and that's why I said, I don't know what cameras that you're using, so I have to check it, but on mine, it's already set, I don't have to do it. All right, so those are the three things I do. Now, after I do those things, I look at those sliders again. So far, so good. Like, I'm not really unhappy with the sliders, but I notice up here in histogram that there are still some dark areas being filled in. So as I hover over that left triangle, you'll see parts of my image or parts of your image get blue. Wherever you see that blue, that means that that image, that part of the image is being filled in completely with black. There's no detail there whatsoever. If it were in an important part, like his face or a product in the shot or something very important, then I would adjust it. In this case, it's not critical, but I will make the effort to adjust it nonetheless, just to see if it improves the overall image. So how do I adjust it? Well, it automatically shows you where you are when you zoom in or when you look at the histogram. So under this triangle, it's the blacks area and the shadows, and the next column over is the exposure and so forth and so on. So you notice I get that double arrow tool. If I just drag that column to the right or that area to the right, I'm adjusting the blacks in this photo. And even if I drag it all the way over to 100%, it still didn't get rid of all of the blue. It got rid of most of it, but it still has a little bit in its collar. And that just means it's just so dark that it can't bring that back. But again, before, after, big improvement. Now, let me look at the black slider, which you could drag over manually too. This is where we were. This is where 100% was. I might not want to go to 100. I might want to go to something in between. Maybe something like that. Great. Okay, we're getting there. The next big thing for me in this photo is it's crooked. Like the whole table, and again, it's just angle, but I look at the wall too. Like everything's leaning to the left. And even if I'm okay with the table and the way he's leaning, the wall shouldn't be leaning. So that lets me know right off the bat that it's crooked. He looks like a grumpy patriot. Yep, I'd agree. But anyway, let's go ahead and fix him up, make him. He's probably unhappy with how dark the scene was. So let's go ahead and fix this. Let's go ahead and grab the crop tool. Now, I could hit auto and see if auto will fix it. Auto does a pretty good job. But even if I don't do auto, what I can do is click the angle tool and drag on something that should be straight. Like that wall should be straight along that path, and that will straighten it. So you have your choice, auto or let it do its thing. Auto, let it do its thing, or you manually either drag the whole rectangle or use the angle tool, which is my favorite because I can just drag it along something that should be straight. All right, it's okay. I sometimes lean that way. Yeah, but you can lean that way, but the wall shouldn't be leaning that way. That's the problem. All right, so now and see, now to me, it looks a little too much to the right. Hang on, let me just back off a little bit. That looks about right. Yeah, so even when I use the tool, it still kind of, to me, straightened it a little too far. So I pulled it back manually to where I think it should be. Great. All right. Now, the only other thing I might do is because of his hat, because of this side light here, or his reflections coming in from the sun or whatever that is, his face just looks a little dark for the scene. And we got distractions. We got a waiter or waitress back there. We got whatever that is on that chair or table. I got all kinds of things going on. We'll worry about those in a minute. Let me go ahead and just address kind of like bringing out his face a little bit while we're here. So I'm going to go to masking. And I have a bunch of choices now. It used to be I would just do a radial mask and call it a day. Now it's detecting the people in the shot, so we'll let it finish doing that. I could also select subject. I could select objects. I can do all kinds of stuff. It was a whole lot easier than it used to be. So if I go to the person, I could say, well, give me, let's see. I could say, give me the facial skin. I could also say, give me everything, the eyebrows, the eye sclera, the pupil, the lips, not the hair. But I could say, no, let's try it just with the skin. Now, this is just one attempt. This is not necessarily the way I would do it, but I just want to see what this would do. So I'm going to create a single mask of all of those things. I could make them separate masks, but I want one mask that combines all of those things together. Now, if I did body skin, that's going to be his hands. His hands are light enough. I don't need body skin. I don't need his hair. I don't need the facial hair right now, even though I could include it, and I don't need his clothes. So I'm going to create a mask of just those things. Now I can go ahead and bump up the exposure of just those things. Too much, looks ghosty. Too much. I can also bring up the shadows in his face. Shadows is even doing a better job. And maybe pull it back, because you tend to overlight when you do it this way. You tend to want to go too far. Now you've made it too bright. So always pull back a little, even though you think you got it where you want it to be. Pull back a little bit, and I would say right about there. Now, I'm still getting this distracting line on his face because we didn't select anything to do with his facial hair. That's a whole different issue. But at least now I've got his face kind of where I want it to be. And let's go ahead and get out of the masking. All right, so again, before, after, we've come a long way. Okay, this is about as far as I'm going to get in Lightroom. I've kind of done all the things that Lightroom can do. When it comes to, I could probably remove that with a new remove brush or But this person, there's no way I'm going to be able to brush them out and have it look good. So if this is all you want, improving the shot you've improved so far, you're all set. You can move on. But I'm going to take it into Photoshop because I think there's opportunity to fix a couple more things. Now, the bug I was telling you about, normally you've been seeing me do this for years. Hit Command E on Mac, Control E on Windows, edit in Photoshop, pops open, save it, round trips, comes back. Because of all the betas and uninstalls and reinstalls I've been doing lately, my Command E or my edit in Photoshop got broken along the way. It'll eventually do it. Like if I say edit in Photoshop, Photoshop will pop right up, but no image will open. And then eventually I'll get an error, and if I click OK on the error, it will open it. I just don't have time to wait for all of that, especially on a live stream. So I'm gonna do it the next best way. I'm going to, everything we've done so far, all the edits we've done are only in Lightroom. So if I open this image up in Photoshop as is, a manual way, none of my edits are going to come with it. So I'm going to hit Command S, or let's see if it's under the file menu. It should be. Or maybe it's under the photo menu. I always forget where the shortcut is because I want to show it to you in the menu because I always do it from the keyboard shortcut. There should be a save metadata. Right, save metadata to file under photo, Command S. You're used to hitting Command and Control S in all your other applications to save. Well, that's what this will do. It will save those metadata changes either inside the file if it's a JPEG or DNG, or as a sidecar file as a RAW file. So now that that sidecar file exists, and you don't normally have to do all this, this is only because I'm working around this bug. Now when I open this up, it will open it up with my edits. So let's go back to the grid. I'm just going to drag this thumbnail down to my Photoshop icon, which I normally wouldn't have to do it this way. And now we'll open it up in Camera Raw, but it will open it up in Camera Raw with all my edits. So I didn't lose anything. I can just go ahead and hit open. Great. Now we're in Photoshop the way we normally would be. So at this point, what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and take care of some of the things in this photo. Now, I'm going to use some of the new AI features to do it. I totally understand when people say, well, I don't want to use AI on my photos because then it's no longer my photos because you're introducing pixels that I don't own. Totally get that. And like I said, that's why I said, if this were all you wanted to do, you could stop here. Now, there are manual ways to do what I'm going to do. They would take a lot longer with the clone stamp tool and using the pixels that are already in the image and so forth and so on. But if you don't want to do if you want to do it faster, use AI. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, and I also noticed some noise in this photo, so we should probably go back and denoise it too. But let's go ahead and make a selection. We'll use our lasso. And again, this is optional, but you're asking what I would do, and these are the things I would do. So I lasso this, whatever this is. I don't know what it is. It's just a distraction to me. Generative fill and hit generate with no prompt. Yep, fill. And that should generate some new pixels, hopefully decent enough to fill that area. That doesn't quite get rid of it all. That got rid of most of it. And then I can just do it again if I don't like what's left over. Hang on, bad selection. If I want to completely get rid of it, and we'll see how this one does. There we go. So that got rid of it completely. I'm happy with that result. Okay, next up. This person kind of just standing back there or walking into the scene, photo bombing. I'm just going to kind of, hang on, sorry. You know what? Let me do it the right way. Let's use my pen. There we go. I can do it quicker and better using my stylus on my Cintiq. All right, so now we got a rough selection around that person. We're going to do the same exact thing. Generative fill. Generate. This doesn't work. I may have to go back to the background layer and start from there. But let's see what happens. And I blinked and it finished. That's a better one. Yeah, I like the middle one better. All right, so now we got rid of our distractions. So that's what I would do to clean this up a little bit. If you use AI, will Adobe Stock see the fill and reject the photo due to different pixels in different resolution? Most likely, because this isn't for commercial use, so you shouldn't be trying to upload it to Adobe Stock. All right. Anyway, until it's out of beta. Next, now let's go ahead. I'm going to create a composite image. So I'm going to hold down the whole left side of my keyboard. Option, Command, Alt, Control on Windows, Shift, E. That should make a new layer of all the stuff we just did. So, because I kind of want it on its own layer for what I'm going to do next. Now, I can turn off all these other layers. They're still there. They're good. But let's go ahead and I just want to see if I can do something with this guy's beard. Like kind of like that white side is just bugging me. So this is more of a preference kind of thing. It's okay. I get what it's for. I mean, I'm not what it's for. I get where it came from. I'm going to feather that selection so we don't end up with a hard selection on this face. So let's go to Select, Modify, Feather. And I don't know, 5, maybe 7 pixels should be good. Okay, great. So now this should be a nice soft selection. Next, I'm going to use my levels. And I just want to see if I can bring down, there we go. Just tone that down a bit. And it's probably affecting too much of his face. I should have selected it tighter. But see how that's more matching the rest of his beard? I just need to tighten up my selection and do it again, but you get the idea. All right, so that's what I would do. So let's go ahead and just kind of remove part of that selection, holding down my Option key. And just removing the part that's on his face. There we go, and we're going to feather that again. Modify, feather. All it's doing is just softening the selection. And let's go by, I don't know, 15 pixels this time. I want to make it really super soft. All right, levels, midtones, and just take some of the brightness out of that part of his face. Click OK, deselect. Yeah, I still need to probably just grab that edge and do it again, but you get the idea where I'm headed with this. Just taking out or toning down some of that brightness in his face. So we'll do our modify. And this is just it's a nitpicky thing that was bugging me about it. You don't have to, the shadow was natural, or the beam of light was naturally happening, but it was bugging me. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Don't scroll. Don't scroll. Come back. Here we go. Yeah, it will take me some time to get that part just right. But you get the idea. Don't leave them like this. Don't leave it the hard line. But if I were to go in, hang on, and grab my history brush and bring down the opacity. All right, let's see if I can just kind of edge that out a little bit. And maybe just use it's just going to bug me. I know I need to move on. But maybe use our burn tool a little bit. Nah, so I would just, again, take the time and try and get that selection just right. So when I do it, it does it good. All right, but I can't spend that time on this now because we've got so many more images to go. But just keep in mind, you kind of want to darken that side of his face if you can and make it look good. It doesn't look good right now because there's still too much white on the edge. But I would kind of blend it in. You might even, like I've done it also where I copy this side and flip it over and paste it on that side. So all kinds of ways to darken that side. It's going to bug me, so I got to close it and get out of it. Go ahead and save it. And now because I added layers, and again, all of this would happen automatically if the round tripping was working to Lightroom Classic. So I'm saving it with all the layers that I did, so I can always come back and work with those layers and throw away that layer and redo his face. But those are the things I would work on and do in that particular photo. Now, when I close it, because of the way I did it, it's not going to come back automatically, so it didn't put it right next to it the way it normally would. I'd have to sync that image in, add it to the collection, then it would be there. So I'm not going to go through all that, but you know that it's saved to the same folder. I can bring it in whenever I want. Next up, here's one by, I believe this is by one of our good friends, Nicholas, and I think he's in Sweden. And it looks like a product shot, and it's got some lighting issues. So let's go ahead and take care of that. So this is one we can pretty much do this all in Lightroom. So I'm going to hit my Develop module. I'm going to do the same things I do, but this is not a portrait, it's not a landscape, so I'm just going to make it maybe vivid. And then we'll go ahead and hit Auto. Already much, much better. We see where the shadows are, or the filled in areas are on that little pouch on the bottom there. So we can bring up the blacks to kind of, and see, if you have enough range, what will happen is that white triangle will disappear once you've solved the problem. So now no areas are being filled in completely black, so that has fixed the problem. All right, next up, because this is not a person, we can add some texture and clarity. So let's add a little text. And again, you could go too far. You can go too far in either direction. So we just want to add some texture to kind of bring out some of the detail. Now, again, I always look for things that are crooked. This looks like it's a little leaning to the left in my eye. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. But let's try it. Sometimes I do this and it was perfectly straight and I don't need to fix it. But in this case, it was a little crooked. And true story, I just had a big metal print done. I did all the editing I wanted to do to the photo. I submitted it, got the print back, and the one thing I forgot to look at, it was crooked. And I had to do it all over again because I was going to hang a crooked photo on my wall. No, I just can't do it. So, all right, so just the tonal things we kind of took care of. Nothing else is really jumping out at me as anything wrong with the photo. The only other thing I might do is, because unless you have a good reason for something being dead center in the photo, we usually want to do a little bit more with the composition and maybe move it to one side or the other. This being a product shot, the product shots are fine being in the center, but to me it's just begging not to be in the center. I don't know why, when it's calling out to me not to be in the center in this photo. So how would I do that? I grab my crop tool. You can stick to the original aspect ratio if you want, or just simply turn off the lock. And I'm going to bring in the crop a little bit from that side. Kind of maybe make the focus point the glass. All right. Yeah. I mean, again, if you wanted to nitpick, you can kind of get rid of a couple of these reflections in the bottle. Kind of clean up some of the dust and lint on the back. Those are nitpicky kind of things, but those are kinds of things that in a true product shot that will get you, that won't get you any future business if you don't take care of them. So for example, I could just simply use the remove tool, or right here, remove brush right here in Lightroom, to kind of remove some of these glaring reflections and these glaring lines. Oops, undo. There we go. So some of the big obvious ones, I would take out like that. And again, I'd maybe go into Photoshop and kind of remove all these little dust specks. So just little things like that I would do. All right, next up. Next photo. Oh, it's a cute baby. All right, we got a baby. Not much to do with the baby. Babies look great the way they are. But if I look at that rule, babies kind of look cool the way they are. There's nothing really to do to them. Then I look at all the stuff around the baby. So I look at, like, what's this little cushion or pillow or thing up here? What's all this stuff back here? Looks like the floor, or maybe this is like a short little bed that the baby's laying on, and that's the floor, like if you're shooting down on the baby. So those become the things that I need to take care of, because like I said, the baby looks great the way the baby is. All right, so let's go ahead and hit develop. Again, I don't know if this particular one is a raw. No, it's a JPEG, so we don't have any raw profiles to work on. So let's go ahead and just simply hit auto. And I didn't even look to see what that looked like. So again, took care of some of the tonal issues. I love what it did to the skin tone. Baby's skin tone looks much better now. And I might, well, let's see what's being clipped. Nothing important is being clipped, but I could bring up the blacks a little bit, just take care of that. And I still might bring up the exposure just a little bit more because we can. There we go, because the baby doesn't need to be in those shadows. All right, so now we got kind of that stuff out of the way. Now I want to deal with the composition stuff and the distraction. So again, I could try and do that stuff in Lightroom. It's much easier and faster to do that in Photoshop. So I'm going to hit Command S, which I normally don't have to, save the edits. I'm going to then go back to the thumbnail and drag that thumbnail down to Photoshop. Again, something I wouldn't normally have to do if I wasn't dealing with a bug. That'll open it up, and yes, just open it, great. And now I can deal with the things I want to deal with. Now, a couple of things come to mind. If I want to get rid of this one little gray cushion, whatever this is, I don't even know what that is, but I want to get rid of that. I have two approaches. I could use, well, multiple approaches. I can use clone stamp. I could use the patch tool. I could use the new remove tool. And I could use AI. So first I would try the new remove tool. So I'm going to grab the new remove tool, and the remove tool is great when it works. And sometimes it's not that great because it's just not a good example for it to work on. So let's see, I'm going to come all the way around first, and then I'm going to brush in. And this is kind of one of those. If it works, great, our job is done. If it doesn't work, it worked okay. So again, that's not perfect. It's okay. Before, after, it's okay. Again, it's not stellar. All right, so the next thing I might do is say, okay, that's not stellar, then let's try it a different way. Let's go ahead and try the selection first. When I say okay, meaning it was just okay, it would need some cleanup. All right, so let's try generative fill with no prompt. And that should just automatically pick up the surrounding areas. And I get 3 choices, and of course I can always, and it's just okay. So again, it's about the same as the remove tool. It's not that much better. So, you know, pick your battle. Like for example, that's worse. That's worse. That's about the same. Let's generate again. Let's see if we get 3 more results. Sometimes we get lucky just hitting it again. It's a nasal aspirator. So shows you how long it's been since I've had a baby around me. Nasal aspirator. Great. All right, that's passable. That's okay. So let's live with that for now. And what I want to do now is kind of get rid of this other stuff. Like whatever this is, and again, it could be, hold on. Maybe, yeah, I was going to say, I may not be looking at the top of this. Let's just go ahead and add all this in. All right, and while we're at it, we can come down and say, hey, Photoshop, do some more. Okay, so let's see what this looks like. Much better. Much, much better. It kind of repaired this part, which didn't do as well, and it got rid of all that stuff up there. So now I can't really tell what that is, and that's fine. That's the whole point. It's not something I'm trying to figure out. Where do those bars go to? All right, so now the only other thing I would do, and again, nothing to do with the baby, it's all about the background, is you kind of got a shot here that looks tightly cropped, and it is. So do you want some more space around it? If you do, you got a great option now with the new generative expand. If you don't, you're all set. So I can hit my crop tool. I can just kind of just recompose this a little bit more and kind of pull out this way. Maybe pull out this way a little bit more. And you can set your aspect ratio to what you want it to be. And brand new, since the last time I spoke with you guys, there's a new option in the crop tool, Generative Expand. So you just choose that option. And before, you used to have to make a selection after you did the crop and then do the generate. It does it all at once. So now I just click the check box. Yeah, I know, the pillows look like fingers. I got rid of them. They're gone. There we go. Now it's looking like Wonderland. Made up a hand. It's actually an okay hand. That's my favorite. Okay, so again, I'd either go with that one, but I like that one better because it kind of looks like it's all wrapped around and taking on the same pattern. All right, and then if you choose to, you can kind of do the same thing up here again. Just make that selection and fill in the whole thing, but I'm okay with the contrast. All right, and that's what I would do with this photo. So again, I would save it with all the layers, back to the same folder, and then bring it back into Lightroom with a sync feature I'll show you towards the end. Okay, and that's saving it with all the layers, so we can always come back and regenerate and get rid of all other stuff. That's a giant hand. Where do you guys still seeing a hand somewhere? I don't see it. All right. Oh, you meant the hand that it made. Yeah. But at least it had 5 fingers. I'll give it that. That's an improvement. And for those of you who are new to generative AI, the joke is hands and faces are still a very much work in progress. Hands, feet, limbs. You would think it would be a simple line of code. No more than 2 hands, no more than 5 fingers on each hand, no more than 5 toes, no more than 2 legs. Like you would think that would whatsoever. This is just a beautiful landscape that we can make a little bit more beautiful. So let's go ahead and hit the develop module. It is a raw file, so we're going to go ahead and do camera landscape on that. Beautiful. And then we're going to go ahead and hit auto, which I always do. Great, even better. And then lens correction will enable it. It wasn't enabled, so that's before, that's after. It kind of fixes the vignetting around the photo and the bowing or bending as well. And great. So just with a few clicks, we've already made a huge improvement. Because once it's printed big and it's crooked, you'll hate it. All right, much better, just a little straighter. All right, so then now at this point, you've kind of made creative choices in this case. So for example, maybe I want the rocks to be a little sharper. I can go ahead and do that. I can use my adjustment brush to do those kinds of things. I can also select them as objects and then make the adjustments that way. So the sky looks great. The mountain range looks great. Like there's not a whole lot more left to do to this. At this point, again, it would just be nitpicking. So for example, I might go into my adjustment brush. I might come down, oh, sorry, wrong tool. There we go, wrong keyboard. Come down here and brush all of this. Help me along the edges. Great. Then I might come over here and do this one as well. Great. And then this one down here. And the only reason I'm selecting these rocks separately is because what I want to happen next, I don't want to happen to the whole photo. And then maybe one more here, because these are the ones that are closest to the camera. And that one. Great. And now that I got those rocks selected, then I can go in and do things like texture. So I can really bring out the detail in those things that are really close to the camera. So that's 0 texture. That's too much texture. Something kind of like a little bit higher than normal. Yeah, great landscape. Like, it just looks good the way it is. Not much. All right, so before, after, before, after. Just bringing out those details. Now, again, you could take a brush, kind of brush the tree line, bring that out a little bit more if you wanted to. Make a new mask and do that. Here, let me try something. New mask. I just want to see if I can do it quickly. I'm going to do objects. And I'm going to set my object selection tool to rectangle. There we go. I just want to drag and see if it will select this tree line automatically. And yeah, it got more of the mountain too. But just if I do that, now I could see how this one. You can bring out that part just a hair to kind of make some separation from it and the mountain. And keep in mind, you can always use a brush to subtract the mountain. So if you don't want that, you can go ahead and there we go, subtract from the mask with a brush. So that way you're saying, don't do this part up here, just do the trees. So just subtracting that mountain part out of it. Now you've got a mask of just the trees. All right, and then whatever you do now is only happening to the tree line. Yeah, I kind of like that brighter, just my opinion. Yeah, like I said, someone just said, great pick. Yeah, it's not a whole lot I need to do this. I'm just being picky now. All right, next up. This is a great portrait. Obviously, there's some production things going on. Like we can see a light stand, we can see the background, the picture's crooked. So this is kind of one of those just out of the camera. And this is prime candidate for making adjustments. So let's go to develop. Let's hit all the things we normally do. Let's do camera portrait. Let's make sure our lens corrections are on. They are. Great. And now let's go ahead and hit that auto. And this is another case where I don't like what auto did for everything. So for example, I think it brightened it too much. Let's bring that down a bit. I think it brought the whites up a little bit too much for my taste. I think the shadows could actually go a little higher. And now I've made auto my own. So instead of having to adjust 9 sliders, I adjusted 3. And that's the whole point of auto. All right, so now we can kind of fix some of these other things. So right off the bat, I could go in and I could say that I want to grab that, that remove tool and see if I can remove this stand. There's a shadow for the stand. Don't forget that. And now we got them both. Okay, great. And if I need, I can get in that corner one more time. Cool. That's gone. I could kind of probably do the same thing up here too. Let's see if that works. And it didn't work that great. Let's try it one more time. Better. One more time. Better. Okay. And of course now it's crooked. And there's still some tonal things on his face I should probably work on. But anyway, the crookedness is bugging me more than anything right now. And so if I want to make it straight, here's the problem that we've always had since day one. If I were to go into crop tool, which I normally do, and I were to go grab my angle tool, which I normally do, and I were to drag on this nice line, it's already here for me that should be straight. Great. And in this case, we're okay. It's going to crop in because it has to straighten it and keep the aspect ratio. But sometimes you end up cutting off some of your subject because of that. And if you cut off your subject, and then it's not good. So you end up having to say, okay, how can I keep the subject and do the crop? Now, in this case, it works. It's fine. But I'm going to undo it. And once again, I'm going to show you generative expand on an example I never did before. I'm going to do it on an example like this. So we'll save it. We will drag it to Photoshop, which again, because of my bug, I have to do it this way. We'll go ahead and open it, even though it's crooked. And then we're already in the crop tool from the last time. And I have the same straighten tool up here. I'm going to go ahead and straighten it. And this is what Photoshop's crop tool does. It's going to let you pull it in or not. So I'm going to say, no, don't pull it in. Actually, let's go the other way. Let's get the rest of our image size back. So now we got all these extra areas here. We'll have our image straight, but I kind of want to keep all that extra area. And again, part of that could be the person. So Generative Expand is already chosen. If not, it would be on default. I'm going to do Generative Expand, and I'm going to, sorry, I got to pull them out again because I changed it. There we go. And now we'll go ahead and say OK. Now let's see what we get. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I'm always seeing the results for the first time, just like you are. And there we go, magic. So we got to keep our image size. We got to straighten it. We got to fill in the rest automatically with the kind of the same look and feel of what's already there. And again, you got even 3 choices. So that's cool. That one's not as good. I'll probably stick with the first one. No, actually the second one's better. I like the second one better. Okay, last but not least, while we're here, we have some opportunity to kind of fix some of this stuff. So I'm going to make a composite so that we don't lose our generative layer. We're going to make a layer that we can actually edit. So I just did my Option Command Shift E, PC Control Alt Shift E, and that will give me our composite layer up here that we can work on. So that's a composite of all the layers below, just making it one layer. Now I can use, for example, that remove tool. And I can say, hey, you know, I don't like this wrinkle under the chair. It's just distracting. Let's use the remove tool and kind of remove some of this stuff out of the photo. And same thing, all this stuff that's going on down here, all these wrinkles and creases in the background. And I believe this is one of Deb Davis's photos. So Deb, this is what I would do to your photo. All right, much better. And, you know, little inconsistent lines in the carpet. Super nitpicky. But now I can take care of any of these little distractions. Now, I'm going to leave this fold for the backdrop because it's naturally occurring, a fold of the backdrop. It doesn't really match the carpet or the rug. So I'm not going to try and blend that in. Now, we could see what it would do, just for the sake of example. But let's see. I don't know what this will do. Yeah, it just kind of lessens it. If I do it again, will it get rid of it? Yeah, it starts to try and blend it in. That, to me, that just looks creepy. All right, so again, I would keep it, maybe lessen it, but I would definitely keep a line there because blended in just doesn't look right. Doesn't look real. Yeah, I just keep it. Leave it the way it is. All right, so now let's zoom in on our guy here. Because again, we never zoomed in to take a look. The lighting's a little hot for me. A little. But let's go ahead and grab our remove tool. I see a stray hair here. Let's get rid of that. All right, when I've got hot lighting like this, yeah. There's a trick I do with the clone stamp. So, clone stamp tool. I set my clone stamp to, let's see if I don't have a preset because I'm in a beta. I set it to 40% opacity. That way you're doing it a little bit at a time. It's not doing it all at once. And I set the blend mode to darken. And let's see, darken. I should know where this is. There is at the top there. So I set the blend mode to darken. Now, normally in my regular version of Photoshop, I also create a preset for this. And yeah, don't show me again. Yes. And I call this darken. Darken hotspots. That way I don't have to remember those settings. I can just always come back to it and just click the preset. And it probably made a brush preset instead because that's what the warning was giving me. All right, so that'll make a brush tool preset and you can just go in the brushes panel and get it. Anyway, what you then want to do is come over to the area that's not a hotspot, hold down your Option or Alt key and click, and then come over to the area that is a hotspot, and when you just click, you're adding a little bit of darkness 40% at a time. So you're not brushing, you're just clicking. So come back over here, click, and eventually you'll do it enough to get it even to where you get rid of the whole hot spot. So that's just one way to do it. There's all kinds of ways to do this. It's just that's the way it's worked most naturally for me. And that way, since I'm only doing it 40% of the time, I'm controlling how much of it does it instead of 100%, and it's too much. And it's not going to affect the hair because the hair is already darker than that skin. So that's how I would do that. It looks a little blotchy now because I'm, again, doing it in pieces, but take your time, do it right. All right, next up. So let's zoom out. Save it. Again, save the layered version. I'm saving it to the same folder. Oh, we got like 4 minutes left, so let's see if we can get through 1 or 2 more. Saving, saving, saving behind me. You can't see it. Always at 99%. And it takes the longest to do that last 1%. I think there's a progress bar conspiracy going on. All right, finished. And now let's pop back over and see if we got time. Yeah, we got time for 1 or 2 more. Because this one is kind of like, it's a cool shot. The problem with your shot is your bird is the exact same colors as the background, so it blends in almost perfectly. It's almost like it's camouflage. So what I might do in this case is I might use some AI, but I use some AI in Lightroom. So I'd go to my develop module. I do all the things we do, camera vivid, auto tone, and yeah, see, it just blends in so naturally, it's so hard to see. So what I might do in this case, your background's actually brighter than the subject. So I want to go in and I would say, I would see what select subject does for me. And select subject grabs, see, it got the bird, but part of the flower too. But that's okay, I can at least show you. Or no, you know what? Undo. Let's see what select background does. Yeah, it's still eliminated part of the bird. So what I could do on that is I can add in with a brush and just say, no, don't get the flower. Or yes, include the flower as the background. Don't eliminate the flower. And now we just have the background selected. So with the background selected, I could just bring down the exposure of the background to kind of make your subject stand out. And there's still some parts of the flower that need to be addressed. So I just go in and keep brushing until I got all of that and then bring it back up. So that way you can kind of like start to bring out more of the bird by making it less of the, oh, did I not get the foot? Probably not. So yeah, you can subtract from that part of the selection to get the feet. All right, that's about it. Yeah, just making sure, yeah, see the feet aren't selected. So if you want those feet to show, eliminate those from the selection too, and just kind of tone down the background from being so bright. Maybe oh, you know what? Bring down the highlights for sure. Bring down the highlights of that. Yeah, it's just the bird. It's a challenging one because the bird is the same color. All right. Last but not least on this, once I kind of tone down the background, I would also use this opportunity for a recompose. I'd put that rule of thirds right on the bird's eye. And that's a more natural composition for this shot than having the bird dead center. All right. Don't have to worry about it being crooked. The branch can be crooked. It's okay. And actually, that's probably the way it was. All right. So that's, I think we have time for another one. This one's going to take too much time. But just some quick things here. You're showing too much of this stuff that doesn't matter. So I'd crop in tighter and then try and again adjust the lighting to bring them more out. All right, so we'll save that one for the next one. His beak got lost. All right, yeah, so just again, adjust your mask accordingly. I still see the beak, it's fine for me. But if you need to, brush in the beak. It's up to you. All right, so we'll start off next time with that one. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for, I think Jason's after me. So Jason will be up doing audio and video. in his masterclass. Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll catch you on the next. Oh, Monday. Monday is my photography show. So Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific. So 12 p.m. my time. So 9 a.m. Pacific, the photography morning show happens on Monday. And I'm getting ready to post that as soon as this is done. Cheers, everyone. Catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody.